President Obama has been awarded the 2009 Nobel Peace Prize, less than 9 months after taking office. The chair of the Nobel Committee, Thorbjørn Jagland, made the announcement today in the Norwegian capital of Oslo. After the announcement, Jagland took questions from journalists.
If we could just go over that same territory of the fact that he's not been in office 1 year yet and has not fulfilled any of his promises, may never. Mr. Obama is in the middle of a major decision, as you know, on and will probably end up increasing troop levels in Afghanistan. How does the committee feel about that?
Well,
at this time?
The conflict in Afghanistan concerns us all. And we do hope that an improvement of the international climate and emphasis on negotiations could help resolve that. I do not claim that it must help or will help, but we could hope that this could help resolving that conflict as well.
President Obama took office less than 2 weeks before the nomination deadline. He is the third sitting American president to win the Nobel Peace Prize after Theodore Roosevelt in 1906 and Woodrow Wilson in 1919.
I try not to speak about things before I've really had a process, the chance to process it, because my raw reaction is really that this represents a very significant and disappointing cheapening of the Nobel Prize. And, it's been cheapened before, and it will be cheapened again, but I think there's something really striking here, and even just listening to the rationale that despite overwhelming evidence, they're giving this prize in the hopes that it will change Obama's mind or encourage him to do things he hasn't done. This is a candidate that ran a campaign that was much more based on hope and wishful thinking than it was on concrete policy. So we have hope being piled on hope and wishful thinking. This is supposed to be a prize that rewards concrete behavior, concrete action. And there are many people out there in the world who were under consideration for this prize who every day perform acts that are taken at enormous risk for concrete benefit. One of the things that the Obama administration is being rewarded for with this prize, or what Barack Obama is personally being rewarded for in this prize, is his supposed breakthroughs on international relations. What we're actually seeing as we speak in Bangkok, this is the final day of 2 weeks of climate negotiations, has been extraordinarily destructive behavior on the part of the United States government, on the part of the Obama administration, absolutely derailing the climate negotiations in the lead up to Copenhagen. Developing countries are absolutely shocked by what U.S. climate negotiators have done. They have gone into these talks saying, we're back, we want to re-engage with the world. What they've actually done is made a series of demands that would destroy the Kyoto Protocol and the binding emission architecture that was set up under Kyoto. So to reward the Nobel Prize in the context of destroying the climate, where the U.S. is destroying the climate negotiations or threatening to me is just shocking.
Right now, the president is considering a dramatic escalation of the war in Afghanistan and also the U.S. government's criticism of the Goldstone report on the Israeli war in Gaza.
Now is the moment when we're seeing his actual commitment to change. And it has been one disappointment after the next. First, an extremely half-hearted attempt to get tough with the Netanyahu government when it comes to settlement expansion. I say half-hearted because demands were made, but they weren't followed through with any kind of muscle. As we know, the U.S. has more than moral suasion to use with the Netanyahu government if it's really opposed to settlement expansion. There are billions of military aid that, of course, is never put on the table. And after a little bit of moral suasion failed, we see the same defeatism setting in. And then the Goldstone report. One of the supposed victories of the U.S. re-engagement with multilateralism has been the U.S. taking a seat on the Human Rights Council. But what we see, as in the context of the climate negotiations is the U.S. is re-engaging, but in an extremely destructive way, using their status, their seat at the table, to undermine international law. That's happening in the context of the climate negotiations, and now it's happened in the context of the Goldstone report, where rather than strengthening international law, the U.S. pressure on Abbas and also their own words and actions undermining a crucial report, which should have been a breakthrough, and the Obama administration wasted absolutely no time in selling out Judge Richard Goldstone with no basis of fact whatsoever. The report was extremely balanced. The Obama administration could have stepped back and allowed it to work its way through the UN system, really kind of hid behind the UN on this one. Here you have a judge with an extraordinary international reputation for his belief in international law and his commitment to the reality of of never again, whether in the context of Rwanda or the former Yugoslavia. And this is somebody who's really been committed to that idea. And the U.S. has allowed his reputation to be destroyed and contributed to it in many ways. So this is a moment where Palestinians more and more are saying, okay, you raised our hopes, and now you're dashing them. And then in the middle of all this, the Nobel Prize Committee awards their top honors to Obama. And I think it's quite insulting. I don't know what kind of political game they're playing, but I don't think that the committee has ever been as political as this or as delusional as this, frankly.